So I like to say that I fell in love with mobility shortly out of college. A best friend of mine recommended me for a job that was actually in support of the US government, working to adjudicate schools that wanted to have students studying in the US. And I really just enjoyed my time there. I spent about 3 years there, and from there I then did take a more deep dive into the corporate side, the employment side of immigration. From there, I've just continued to evolve my career, working as an immigration specialist, then moving on to becoming a true global mobility specialist and consultant, where not only am I supporting employees from an immigration standpoint, but also relocation and international assignments.
Yes. So I always been involved in global mobility of some sort, because I am the second generation in Brazil. Both my parents are from Europe. Their parents are from Europe. I'm the second generation here. My father is from Portugal, and my mother is daughter of Lithuanian nationals, so it's really weird. But I've been working with global mobility for 11 years now. It's a pretty long journey, which I enjoy every minute. And I believe I'm, one of a few that has both experiences as both an HR person and a service provider. So I see that I can have a clear view of the whole global mobility process from both sides, while I am the person receiving an expat here in my company, or I am.
So my story is a little bit of a long one. So I undertook some work experience when I was in secondary school, and absolutely fell in love with HR. So I knew that was what I wanted to do. I went to college on that basis, found a course that allowed me to specialise in HR, of which there weren't a lot around at that point in time. And while I was there, it allowed me to specialise in both HR and marketing. And when I came out of college, I actually loved both of those so much that it was hard to choose between them. And I found the ideal role of a HR and marketing coordinator. So that was kind of right out of college. I then left that company and was asked to come back to support a HR maternity leave role. When I got my first taste of global mobility, it became the most interesting part of my day. So for me, I just knew then that was what I wanted to do. So when an opportunity came up within that global mobility team, both the local head of HR and the European head of HR kind of supported me in applying for that role. They told me it was either going to be based abroad in London or in Amsterdam, and would that be, something that I wanted to undertake. And I'd always wanted to live and work abroad, so being able to do that and take on a role that I absolutely loved was ideal. So that was kind of where I started off in global mobility.
Essentially, what had happened is I was working for Marriott International in hospitality, and started to look both inside and outside the company a bit. And this was back in 2005, I guess. And as a child, I was a child expat. I lived in Italy for 4 years, while my father was an expat with IBM. And so I'm not saying that because I was a child expat that's what I wanted to do was serve expats when I got older. But certainly I think when I saw an opportunity out there with Lockheed Martin, who I used to work for prior to Hilton, when I'd seen that opportunity and what was involved, and I had also majored in college in international business. When I saw that opportunity out there for something international related, but also marrying with HR, which is something I wanted to get into at the time, just because I really like people and I like interacting with people. I like learning about people and just networking in general. So when I saw that opportunity, I thought it was a good one, and perhaps down a path for a career that I think could be really rewarding and sort of finding you in your career. Because what I was doing at the time wasn't something that I wanted to do for a career. So when I saw that opportunity, I took it, and I've never really looked back. I've just tried to continue to develop my skills with global mobility and just really get out there and network with a lot of different peers out there, with a lot of the bigger companies to see how we can share best practices. So now I've been with 2 different companies doing it, and seeing, what we can do for our customer base out there. And honestly, I wouldn't see myself doing anything else for a career. I mean, perhaps I would get into something a little bit larger as I get older in my career, but I'd also be very happy just staying in mobility because I do have a passion for it.
So I think the pivot point for me of being in mobility really started before I even knew what mobility was. So a lot of people kind of fall into mobility, whether it's through working on an HR team or because they have an interest in international work. And for me, I actually got my university degree in human resources and international business. So I kind of wanted to be in mobility before I knew what mobility was. And having the opportunity to work on an international project with expats really piqued my interest. And that was kind of the point that I decided this is where I fit, this is where I belong and want to continue working. And that path was not, direct. I worked in a number of different spaces, but having the opportunity to actually be an expat on an assignment was kind of that tipping point for me to really be in the mobility space. I was on an assignment to Iraq in 2006 and 2007, which was kind of, trial by fire, thrown right into the mix of a really intense experience, but it really solidified how important an assignment is for someone's career, as well as the support someone receives when they're on an assignment. So for me, having such great support during that time really solidified the fact that I wanted to be able to provide that to others. So having returned from that assignment is when I really got into mobility much deeper. I was able to get into positions that enabled me to help assignees and individuals, whether it was for an outbound assignment from the US, coming to the US, or even something just related to their immigration process within the US. And having the ability to really support assignees and individuals through these multiple different processes really hooked me into mobility. And I love what I do. I love having the opportunity to work with individuals as well as the organization to really further those mobility goals.
I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. I graduated from university with economics and finance background. And then I was doing a little bit of a little stint in the university doing examinations, so dealing with exam papers and marking and all that stuff for about a year. And then I went to the hotel where I come from a family of hoteliers, so I did that for a bit. And then my partner at the time said, hey, why don't you join mobility? It sounds very interesting. He was in the mobility space as well, and said, give it a shot. So I did a diploma, postgraduate diploma in human resource management. And knowing mobility in Singapore or the rest of the world, there is actually no real qualifications in the universities right now where you can graduate as a mobility professional. So I had to start from the very bottom and work my way up. It's been a very rewarding journey, and it comes with its own set of challenges. But I think the one main important thing in the whole journey I've learned is about empathy, about the people experience, about putting yourself in their shoes, because relocation is actually a very stressful and anxious time in anybody's life. And when you put the family and the pets all into one, it gets really, really stressful. So that's my journey. Not many people love it, but I do. So it's been 9 years and I don't intend to get out of the industry.
Lived abroad for 11 years. We left pre-internet, came back post 9/11, and I always say my claim to fame is 3 kids, born in 3 different continents. So when I came back to the US in 2003, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, what I wanted to get into from a work perspective. And so it was easier to just kind of look at options through my experiences. And I ended up getting a job working for a spouse partner career transition company. And through that company, I was able to really brand myself as a global leader, building in the global organization and footprint for that. And then I went on to do global assignment management. I did that first on the supplier side and then worked on the corporate side. And I've worked for 3 different companies and really continued to expand my experience both as a project and change manager, as well as really just looking to see how do you build the best talent-centric and employee-centric mobility program. And that's where my passion lies, is that connection between talent management and mobility, and how do you work with the company to ensure that you're really getting the best talent and helping to drive the business initiatives with mobility.
So I started out in global mobility by accident. I feel like I've heard that often in the mobility space, that people just come about it. And so when I was in law school, I was interning at a law firm in my last year of law school. And I was really drawn to this law firm's immigration practice and the fact that they did outbound immigration. So they were based in the US, but helping foreign nationals or US citizens go to the company's offices abroad. And so I really liked that I was working with people from outside of the US, different cultures, different time zones, different types of people and functions within the company, like HR, global mobility. And so from that law firm role, that's when I started working for the immigration practice and learning more about the outside global mobility and generally what the companies have internally for HR. So I happened to get into global mobility and immigration, just didn't have any immigration experience, but I really liked, the opportunities, and I learned from the ground up at the law firm what global mobility meant. And, it's different for every company and different for every person what global mobility means, but it was an opportunity to get into it and I really enjoyed it. And I think for anyone else looking to get into global mobility, just try it, like try immigration or HR and then benefits, and move around, ask questions, get involved. If there's a project going on and maybe it's not directly related to you, but there's someone else on your team or outside of your team working on it, just ask to support or learn or listen on in those calls. And that's how I really evolved in my learnings of what global mobility can do and what the different functions of these companies have and support mobility.
So I was actually in a general HR administrative role at the time with Boeing Australia. And I had actually ended up driving from a regional site back to the Brisbane hub with the global mobility manager coming back from site one day. And he was expressing to me some of his frustrations and some of his challenges that he was having with some of his program participants. And I just offered some suggestions around perhaps what he could do to overcome some of those. And he actually outlined that he was advertising for a advisor role within his team. And I applied and was successful for the role. I quickly fell in love with the subject matter. I think it was the complexity, the sense of reward that I got out of working in those kind of grey areas that mobility is well known for mastering and navigating. But the problem solving and, of course, helping the people kind of navigate that important part of their life where they're kind of finding an intersect between their personal and professional lives, for me, is really rewarding. And so from there, it's just been a progression through multiple roles and leadership succession. So for me, it's really been an exciting journey and started from quite a humble beginning.
Candidate who's looking for a job in global mobility area, I think they need to they need to hear it, that they don't need to be an expert in every single field. meaning they don't need to be a tax expert or immigration expert. And sometimes people think so, oh, I don't have any chance to get into mobility because I don't know anything about taxes. Obviously, we need to have some background.